All right, so you're probably used to seeing me in the Land Rover Lightweight in the desert, but I wanted to introduce you to my other truck. This one has been going through a rebuild for a couple of years now, and it's going to be the Lightweight's turn, and so I'll be taking this one on the next couple of desert trips. And I've been working on getting it ready for the long patrol in Algeria later this year. And it now has one very special, unique modification that will probably make it one of the most unique short wheelbase Land Rover 90s on the planet. And let's talk about it. So one of the great things about Land Rovers, if you're going to set up an expedition truck, is they've been used for expeditions for 60 years. And in that time, if you can imagine a modification or an accessory, odds are someone out there makes one. So imagine my surprise when I decided that my 90, to make it ready for the very long legs we're going to be doing in Algeria later this year, needed a second fuel tank. Now, the options are, so my 90 has what's called a sill tank. It sits underneath the driver's seat. It's 65 liters, so it's not a lot, especially for long legs. So the last time I had it in the desert, I had to carry a lot of jerry cans of extra fuel. And I thought, okay, I need a second fuel tank. Now, in my Lightweight, being a military vehicle, there's twin tanks. There's one under each seat, and they carry a total of 90 liters, and for the Lightweight, that works really well. It gives me a great range. And I thought, well, why don't I do that? Why don't I put, I've got a tank underneath the driver's seat. Why don't I put a second tank underneath the passenger seat? And I started looking around and found out nobody makes them. There is a modification where you can put a plastic TD5 tank in the back, between the chassis rails, and a lot of people consider that as a modification, but on an expedition we carry a lot of weight in the cargo space in the back of the vehicle, and it puts a lot of stress on the shock absorbers and the suspension, so I don't want to pile any more weight into the back. I wanted a second underseat tank. Nobody makes a near side or a left-hand side underseat fuel tank for a Land Rover 90 or 110. So I had to get creative. And I pulled out the underseat tank on the driver's side. I photographed it. I measured the space. I thought, well, maybe I can just get a second one of these and put it in the other side. But it doesn't work that way. The way the chassis is set up, there's kind of an angle on both sides that goes in a different direction. And so what I needed was a mirror image of the driver's tank. And the only place I could find one, some guys in Australia would make a custom one for about 3,000 Australian dollars. That didn't even include shipping, so no, not doing that. So I took the photographs and all the measurements, and there we go. There is my bespoke, custom, one-of-a-kind underseat passenger side fuel tank for my 90. It's basically a mirror image. It's not curvy and whatnot. It's welded aluminium, 2mm aluminium, and it should be about the same capacity, 65 liters. So both tanks fueled up should give me 130 liters of fuel, which will give me a fairly big range. So now I can carry more jerry cans of water and less jerry cans of fuel. And I have a couple of ideas of some extra spots I can carry jerry cans. So anyway, this is basically a custom design. And as you can see, this side here is the mirror image of the driver's side. And this is designed to fit with the outriggers that come off the chassis as part of the suspension. So it'll slide in there. This piece here will sit on top of the chassis rail. There's a mount that I had custom fabricated to go with it. It's made out of steel, which will bolt to the chassis frame and carry the front mount. At the rear there's an extension which will just have a couple of U-bolts mounting it to the tubular arm that comes out of the side of the chassis. And it's just going to get plumbed in. It's got baffles in the interior, baffles around the fuel intake pipe, baffles in the front and the rear. And on the bottom, it has a 3mm aluminum skid plate. So if I'm banging over dunes or hit some rocks, I'm not going to take the chance of putting a hole right into the bottom of the tank. And the skid plate is separated from the bottom of the tank by about 1.5 centimeters, so you could even get a few dents in it without making contact with the tank. So this is going to get plumbed in. I've already test fitted it, and it looks like it's going to go in no problem at all. I'm going to get some rubber mounts for it. And then, kind of like my military tank on my lightweight, basically there's a changeover valve. And just by twisting this back and forth, you select the main or the auxiliary tank. And this is a marine grade one, but it's basically the exact same device as goes on the military Land Rovers. And so, yeah. Okay, so the auxiliary tank is now plumbed in. But one of the things we had to do was to move the battery. So the battery in a 90 or 110 will normally sit in a bin that's riveted to the bottom of the seat box underneath the passenger seat where the new fuel tank goes. So we had to relocate the battery. So similar to my lightweight, the battery now lives in a box underneath the center seat console. So here is my new auxiliary tank plumbed in. It's got a good coat of black hammerite paint, so it's not quite so obvious that it's there. Fuel filler. And so here's my new fuel tap. So that's main tank, that's auxiliary tank. And it just switched back and forth. Now, one other thing you have to remember, this being a diesel, if you go and get one of those changeover taps, they will tell you it's only for petrol. That's because on diesels you have a fuel line that returns to the main tank from the engine for excess fuel that's not used up. And it's not a big deal at all. I haven't changed that at all. The only difference is the main tank goes into the switch, the auxiliary tank goes into the switch, the fuel return line just returns to the main tank. So that only thing you have to worry about then is that sometimes when you are running off the auxiliary tank, the main tank will slowly start to refill, and you got to keep an eye on your fuel gauge, otherwise it will overfill and you'll end up pouring diesel out of the top of the tank and leaving it all over the road or the desert. So I've added an extra fuel gauge, so we've now got the main tank gauge, the auxiliary tank gauge, and so I can see how much is in each tank and keep them balanced out in between. So the only small challenge I had was once I filled up the auxiliary tank, I could run the engine off the auxiliary tank, no problem, at idle. But when I tried driving it, it started to stutter and die. So I checked everything, there was no leaks. And so I fitted a breather valve to the top of the auxiliary tank. Now it runs fine. And I should have done this originally anyway. With the lightweight, I've fitted a breather on the top of both tanks, which basically allows air in to replace fuel coming out, so you get no vapor locks. And now it runs fine. So I'm heading off to the Sahara again next weekend, and I'll be doing some filming from the desert. So I'm going to do a fuller video on the entire 90 build, all the changes I've made, the modifications for desert travel, and I'll talk you through them all there once we're out in the desert. It's just too hard to do that if I'm here in my little British garage. Anyway, so that is my new custom, bespoke, fancy, unique Land Rover auxiliary underseat tank. Thanks for watching.